Hello and welcome back to my channel, or if you are new here and do not know, my name is Robin and I like to talk about queer books, and today I'm going to be going through my favourite books of 2024 so far. So I thought, what a perfect time halfway through the year to go through and celebrate the books that I've read this year. There have really been some standout books, and quite a few of these have actually been debut books, which is just insane. This is going in order of how I read them. So the first book I want to talk about is Wandering Souls. I did actually do a recap of this in my January wrap up. Wandering Souls is a very intense but very raw and very emotional book. This book is set just after the Vietnam War, and it follows three siblings who have gone to seek refuge in elsewhere in a different country. It spans from their father being told all these great things about America and how his brother's gone there, he's made a life, and he wants to go and join in on the American dream. And so they take a very perilous and dangerous journey, and the three siblings go first. They make two separate journeys. The three siblings go first, and unfortunately the rest of the family don't make the journey, and they are killed on the way there. And how these three siblings end up in Hong Kong in the refugee camp, and how they are sort of treated and how the process is. The refugee employees sort of ask them where they would like to be resettled, and they say they would like to go to America, and but through sort of like grief and anger and pain, the older sibling, the sister, sort of just says, we don't have anyone there though, because she's so like full of anger of like her uncle influencing her dad, that she's like, yeah, we don't have anyone there. Like, she doesn't want to be there, she doesn't want to live with him. She wants to be there, but she doesn't want to live with him, or doesn't want to look at him. And so because of this, their application is denied and they are sent to the UK, and we get to see them rebuild their lives and see the sort of struggles that they face, especially under a Thatcher government as well. It's such an incredible book. It's very, very emotional, and it's one of those books that I feel like everybody should have to read at least once. It is just beyond incredible. The writing is incredible, and yeah, it is very, very emotional, so definitely a 5-star read from me. The next book I want to talk about is Sunburn. I also talked about this on my January wrap up because apparently January was such a good year for books. This book is incredible. This book is really, really incredible. It is set in the early 1990s and follows two girls who live in a small Irish village, and how over a summer holiday they sort of become very connected, and a relationship and feelings sort of bloom, but because of how Catholic this town is, and obviously in the like early 90s, it's a very difficult time for them to both exist. It's during the 6 weeks holiday that a lot of feelings and things start to happen through the love letters and through just pure intimacy. Like, they both start talking to each other and start to really, really like each other, and it sort of comes to a head when one of the characters wants to continue this relationship and wants to be public about the relationship, and the other character is so focused on like keeping their family together and not disappointing their family that like they both end up going their separate ways. But we follow them throughout adulthood as well, and we follow them towards the end of the book, which I guess is kind of like a mini spoiler, but this book is genuinely incredible. I thought it was very beautiful. It was very, very just well written. I really loved the relationship, and this, I want to say like a slow burn, but it is sort of like seeing two people yearn for each other but not having the power of the words to understand what is happening to them, especially in a place that is so they're so frowned upon. And so I think this was just a really stunning book, and this was one of the best books I have read this year so far. The next one, if you have not heard, you just press the X button up in that top corner. You just press the X button, you know, give it a Google, give the movie a watch, and then come straight back. Completely fine with me. The next one is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I want to say I read 3 books out of the series, but the first one is on my list because it was just incredible. And if you've never heard of Hitchhiker's Guide, it is genuinely, well, it was one of my favourite movies of all time, and it is literally the first time I have read the book, and I shouldn't have waited so long. I really shouldn't have waited so long because it is beyond incredible. It is insane, it is stupid, it is brilliant, it is so funny. I just like, I can't put into words how magnificent of a book it is. And if you have no idea what Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is, it follows a main character, Arthur Dent, wakes up to his house being torn down or about to be torn down, and sort of 5 minutes later he's told by his best friend, who he now finds out is an alien, that the world is ending. And from there he is saved by his best friend, and they go on adventures around the galaxy and basically find out why the world is made, who made the earth. It's very silly, it's like a really fun, adventurous story. This is a book for me that I was listening to this as an audiobook, and I was having times where I was listening to it and I was genuinely like laughing out loud in public, like on the train, on the bus, just openly laughing at how funny this book was. It genuinely is one of the best books I have ever read, and it is so good. And even if you're not a sci-fi fan, I think that this really does have like a place for everyone. I think that the humour is so quintessentially British, and there is so much wit, and there's just sarcasm and everything about it. I think all the characters are fantastic. They are all terrible, but they are all terrible in some of the best ways. It really is a stunningly amazing book, and if you get the chance to read it, you should absolutely do it. At least read the first one, because the first one is just incredible. It is so incredible. The next one I have also talked about because this kicked off my 20 queer comics to read, and this is Flung Out of Space. This is sort of like a fabricated retelling of Patricia Highsmith, who wrote Carol's life. It's just sort of taking details that we sort of knew about her, but adding a little bit of flavour of like what could have happened. And we follow her as being in the 1950s and being a lesbian and seeing how difficult that was. But we also see how terrible of a person Patricia Highsmith was, and this book does not shy away from that. But I think what really sold it was how gorgeous this entire book is. It's sort of like, I've already shown this page off, but this is a page where sort of like how Carol came to be, and it's because Patricia Highsmith was working in a toy store and found a woman who was super attractive and was like, what if I just imagined the rest of my life with her? This is perfect. This is just the perfect comic. And I love having this edition so much. This little hardback edition is just stunning. This is definitely one of the best comics I have read, and definitely one of the best books I have read this year. The next book I think is a fantastic book is The Exorcist. This was a buddy read with my friend, and they said this was the best book that they have ever read. And so we read this together, and holy shit, I can't believe I've been missing out on this book. I went into this book thinking it's not going to be as scary as everyone says it is, like it's not going to be as creepy as everyone says it is, and there are a lot of things in this book that I think if you haven't watched the film or you haven't read the book, I haven't seen either, so I came in with like a lot of misconceptions about like what this book could be. And so I think the things in the book that really make it terrifying are things that I never thought could be terrifying, if that makes sense. The exorcism itself is sort of a B plot line to the story, and it actually follows the priest who is dealing with the exorcism and his relationship with his faith and God, and like sort of almost abandoning his faith because he doesn't believe anymore. We also get Regan, the little girl who has been possessed, and how, you know, people like she goes to the doctors and stuff like that. Like it's just stuff that like even now you're like, this is the most obvious thing to what it could be. Like she goes to the doctors and they try and find a proper explanation for it, and the entire time you know she's possessed, and there's something so creepy and horrid about the like knowing that these people are doing all the right things. I hope I'm selling this right, because it is a fantastic book, and it really does, I think, turn the horror genre on its head. I think it really steps away from a lot of tropes that you see in the horror genre, and this is the original horror book, so like, even if the rules were still being written at this time for what horror is, I think it still definitely continues its legacy to this day. It'd be an incredible horror book because I truly have never read anything like it, and it's a perfect 5 stars, of course it is. The next book I have read and also have mentioned in a wrap-up video is the 100-Year War in Palestine. I will be leaving below some places that you can go and donate if you have the funds to do so. I read the 100-Year War in Palestine just to get a little more insight into what is happening, and so I could give a better discussion to the people around me. And it is very eye-opening, and I think it's a definite must read for people if you are, you know, concerned, or if you don't really understand, or if you're having conversation with your parents, the people around you, and you know, don't know why this is important. I think it definitely is. It gives you all the facts you need, it gives you everything, it goes through every single important event. It's so important to stay educated and to help educate those around you. And so I don't feel like I have to say much more on this because I have already talked in depth about it, but it goes from 1917 to 2017 and recounts everything that has happened. Israel has been doing that entire time to Palestine, and I think it is a very important read. It's a very difficult one, but it's definitely one that if you have the capacity to do so, you should definitely read it. The next amazing book I have read is Bright Young Women, and this book is inspired by a true story of a serial killer. We follow 2 perspectives throughout the book. We follow Pamela, who lives in a sorority house and wakes up sort of very early in the morning. She hears some strange noises, and when she goes to check, she finds 2 of her sorority sisters are dead. And we also follow the perspective of Ruth, who is a victim of the killer, and we recount everything that has led up to her murder. I have an issue with a lot of serial killer true crime stories. I think if it's harming the family, I think it's shouldn't be consumed for entertainment like it is, but that's a conversation for another day. I think what made this a 5 stars is that this humanised everybody that was involved and sort of shone a light onto the court system, the police. Like, this went through things that went wrong throughout the entire process of trying to get this man convicted. A lot of true crime always focuses on the murderer and their background and how it got to this point, but I think that just dehumanizes and sort of like gives them a sort of like a celebrity role when we do that. So I think that this book took a completely different approach, and I think that highlighting these injustices in the system itself as well was really incredible, and it was just a fantastic read. It is a really fantastic read, so definitely check it out if that is your sort of thing. The next book I thought was fantastic was A Trans Man Walks Into a Gay Bar. This book is just incredible, and I think that's just the way it's written, and I have written down, and I do feel this way but it sounds a little bit cheesy, this book is written as if like my friend like was sat here, like the author was my friend and he was just sat there talking to me about how like this is just what happened to me, and I was just like, we went out for a coffee together, we're just having a talk, we're like, you know, we're having a little sit down, and like this is just what he was telling me. That's how it was written. Like, it's a really strange thing to feel when reading, but it was so personal, so raw, and it was so fantastically written, and it was just so natural and honest. It follows the author, who straight into the book we find out is breaking up with his girlfriend and sort of coming to terms with being a gay man, and how being a trans man and being a gay man and going into different queer spaces, how that affects him and his different experiences. I thought it was a really fantastic book. I think this is like again, this feels like another must read, and also it is such a short book. Like, I think I read this in an afternoon. It was so I just couldn't put it down. I couldn't stop reading it. The next book I thought was incredible was In the Dream House. This is also a book that follows the author's experiences and her experiences in a same-sex abusive relationship, and I can't really give you anything much more than that, but is quite a short story. It of course has a lot of triggering topics, but so I know this one won't be for everyone, but it is genuinely so incredibly well written. It's just fantastic. It is genuinely fantastic. The next book I want to talk about is Diavola. and I did an entire review on this book because I enjoyed it so much. This book is a creepy horror story, and sort of when I'm talking about all the other books on the rest of this list, they all feel very serious. This book is just a 5 stars because I really enjoyed it. This book follows the main character who is going on a family holiday in Tuscany. It follows her as she goes through like being in this house and the house being very haunted, but also her family also being equally as terrible as the haunted house. I think this book is very fun, very creepy. I think there are a lot of moments that I really enjoyed in this book, and again this was a 5 stars because I loved it so much, and you should definitely check out my entire review on it if you are interested. The next amazing book on my list was Notes on Grief, and this is a very short, like I think it was like a 30-minute audiobook. I want to say like almost like an essay, but it is just a very short story. And this is another sort of based on the author and the author losing her father, coming to terms with the grief of that, and also like how awful it was with the travel restrictions and not being able to go and fly to where he is. And I think there's just this one was very human. I just think it's very personal. I think it's very human, and I think it speaks to a lot of experiences that we have all had, especially during COVID. And so I just really enjoyed this one. I wanted to put this one on the list because this was just a really fantastic, well written, very short book. And the last one on my list might be my favourite book of 2024. Like, depending on how the rest of the year goes, this might win the title for best book of 2024. This book was genuinely beyond words. So I read Evenings and Weekends, and I want to do a whole video about this book because of how incredible it is. Evenings and Weekends follows a group of friends in 2019 in a hot summer in London. We follow, I think it was like 3 or 4 different perspectives, and everyone is going through different issues and struggling with the day-to-day life, and I think the author articulates everything so incredibly well. It's genuinely some of the best writing I've ever read. It's also a debut novel. Quite a few stories on this list have been debut novels, and that's just insane to me. It's beyond insane to me. But Evenings and Weekends is definitely one of the books that's going to stick with me for a while, because I think the human experience, the like queer human experience in 2019 is such a, it feels like such a vivid memory for me. Like, it's so present to me. Not to sound like that, it's almost like an experience to read it. I think that just saying like 5 friends that, you know, are struggling with their life, it's just sort of like really undersells it, to be honest. I think that these are 5 separate experiences all intertwined with each other. I think these characters are so fleshed out that if you told me that these were real people, I would completely believe you. It is absolutely incredible. It genuinely is one of the best books I have read this year for sure, and definitely like in my top 5 favourites of all time. So this is definitely one of the books I sort of want to get a physical copy, just to have a physical copy, just to be like, this is one of my favourite books. That was my best books of 2024 so far list. I hope you enjoyed it. I very much enjoyed reading this book this year. Obviously, let me know your favourite books below this year so far, because I would absolutely love some recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, like, comment, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff, and I shall see you next time. Bye.